name is Devin Brown. I am currently living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I'm originally from Glen Ridge, New Jersey. I am a passionate paddler. I love spending time and on the water, meeting rivers. I was a kid that was fortunate enough to go to summer camp for the majority of my childhood summers. I think it was like 13 summers with a decade in between when I returned in my late 20s to be an adventure trip leader. And through that experience, I really, really deeply connected with kayaking as I was dealing with some mental health issues. And, you're in your late 20s and you're in that quarter life crisis and you just really don't know what life is supposed to hold. So paddling through the Gulf of Maine twice and having harbor seals scare the heck out of you. I could have, done it a little bit with a little bit more enjoyment if I wasn't taking care of campers, but that was the gig. And that also had its learning and its joyful moments. But yeah, when I learned that kayaking was really essential to who I am and feeling grounded and my mental health, moving to the Twin Cities where we have 10,000 lakes and this absolutely incredible river just made sense to my soul. So I've been in Minneapolis for I think 13 years. And in 2024, yeah, 12 years, because in 2024 marked a decade of me being in the Twin Cities, and I set out on a long time goal of paddling the Mississippi River. I made it down from the headwaters to Hannibal, Missouri in a couple of weeks. I had water on my side, water and flow, but then eventually it was no longer on my side and the waters became too high and it was no longer safe for me to continue. So I look forward to doing it again. I keep saying, or people always say like, "Oh, that's so sad what happens?" And I'm like, "Oh, shame. I have to go do it again." Um the freedom of being on the river and the love that you receive from river angels and the joy of the sun beating on your face and just paddling and thinking and vibing and getting in touch with who I am is something that I am so excited to be able to do again.
A little bit more about the summer camps. And is that where you learned to paddle? Is that where the enjoyment sort of sprung from initially getting the opportunity to go out on the water and yeah, was that where it started?
Absolutely. I went to a summer camp called Frost Valley YMCA in the Catskill Mountains for most of my life. Every summer, I looked forward to being able to go. I should say every year. Like I would get home from summer camp and I would immediately like repack my trunk with the things that I knew would end up going again and just count down the days that I could go back to summer camp just to be out in nature. You develop so much independence as a child going out to summer camp because you don't have your parents to sort of help you navigate situations or the stress of them to be on your back. You're free. So that is the place where I learned how to paddle. I'd paddle around Lake Cole. I can swim, but lake swimming is like a completely different beast for me. There's fish and stuff in there. So I don't so I always opted for paddling around the river.
When did you start thinking that, oh, okay, I could get qualified in this, I could become a trip leader? Is that something that you wanted to do from childhood? Because you mentioned you got into it in like your late 20s. Had you done something before that?
Yeah, so some of those summers were me as like a counselor in training, and I was an actual counselor on staff. So being a trip leader, being older, you get more insurance from the camp when you're a little bit older. So becoming a trip leader was the inevitable next step.
Because you also founded a company as well. Do you want to share more about that?
So through my paddling and advocacy here in the Twin Cities, I had a really incredible opportunity to work for an organization which is the Friends Group to the National Park Service. And if you know American government, you know that it moves as fast as it's going to move, which is very frustrating to somebody who likes to be agile and do the work and not have an ulterior motive about checking boxes and fulfilling needs. So that position ended up just not working for me, and it was a blessing in disguise because I was able to make these connections with local organizations who saw my heart and saw that I was really in it to do the work and connecting people to the Mississippi River, and especially people that look like me to the Mississippi River and get them into paddling because paddling is a very homogenous sport, especially in America. The barrier to entry is very high to do that. So Sovereign Waters is an organization that I founded in order to be more agile, to get people on the water in ways that they feel comfortable, to meet people where they are. Through my time getting people on the Mississippi River and connecting with community, I've learned that not everyone is ready to hop on the Mississippi River, right? Like me, I was like, oh, it's just Mississippi River. Like this is totally calm, but people have a fear around water. So Sovereign Waters is able to partner with Sankofa Swim International and other organizations to deal with that intergenerational trauma and help people build relationships with water and with the Mississippi River because we can't protect our natural spaces. Like of all the things that are happening in Minnesota right now, there's like a war on water, whether it's mining in the boundary waters or what they're dumping in the Mississippi River or who owns this lake. There's a war on water and there just are not enough people participating and being aware of it because they have no connection to water. So if we really want to make lifelong stewards to protect the natural world, we have to get people to fall in love with the natural world and have a connection to it. So that is what Sovereign Waters is here to do, is to help people connect to the natural world and specifically water.
When did you start thinking about taking your own adventure down the Mississippi River? Has this been, was this trip, was this adventure, was this like a lifelong dream or something that you've been working towards? Was this just something that sparked your imagination and then you just decided to be like, "Do you know what? Life is too short. Let's just go. Let's just pick a day, book a day, and just get out there and do it." What was the story of getting to the start line?
It's like all of the above. So the story was I was working for a big technology company that owns hundreds of high profile stores around the globe. And I started out working for this company in a mall and I graduated to working in a Manhattan flagship store. And the stress of that position, even though I worked really hard to get there, just ended up not being what I had expected it to be, what I had hoped it to be. I also joined this company before the famous leader passed away. And then when that leader passed away, the company sort of changed overnight and it became a company that was very much, that started off with our biggest asset is our people to our biggest asset is the cell phone, and I need you to sell this mobile device. So there was a huge cultural shift, and I felt it, and I didn't like it. But fortunately, that company was the way that I got to the Twin Cities to meet the Mississippi River. I came on a business trip to remodel a store, and I remember it being Aquatennial weekend, which is sort of like the Minneapolis Independence Day, if you will. It's a union busting day. Like the story behind Aquatennial is actually kind of devastating and disgusting. But anywhere there were fireworks, and I remember it being this very romantic scene of me standing by this river because I wasn't aware that it was the Mississippi River. And there was just this vibration. And if everything in my life felt like it was going on this path of things that I was supposed to do, checking boxes and doing the things the society told me was the definition of success. And I met this river, and that was like the only thing that felt real and felt right. And so then I returned back to the East Coast and I just kept thinking about the Mississippi River. And as I was doing my research, I learned that people do source to sea on this river every single year. And I knew that that was going to be me one day. And so I quit my job. I cashed out my 401k. I moved to Minneapolis. In that time, I was also dealing with some chronic pain issues where doctors were just like, oh, you're just overweight, lose some weight. I actually lost the weight and it got worse. So it was moving to Minneapolis was this moment of freedom. Learning about the Mississippi River gave me hope and aspiration and something to hold on to in a really dark moment of my life. So I moved here with a couple of suitcases, not one single boat, and I worked my tail off. I ended up changing careers. I became a massage therapist because the massage therapist role was going to get me the house, that was going to get me the car and buy me the boat. And so I always worked towards being able to get to the point where I had the boat, the house, the car in order to take this journey down the Mississippi River. And then I also had the community because my community really helped rally for me and fund that trip and fund the boat in different ways.
Let's talk about that a little bit more actually. Sort of making those big decisions, quitting your job, selling your 401k, moving, big life changes that with a very sort of clear goal in mind. How easy was it to build community, to build friendships, to connect with other women who enjoyed kayaking, who enjoyed paddling, who enjoyed spending time on the water?
I worked for Midwest Mountaineering, which is no longer around. And the beauty of working for that outdoor retailer was getting to meet other people that were able to go outdoors. Something that was a little bit off balance in that working for an outdoor company and then also being able to afford to be in an outdoor company were very different. So I was able to see the gear, touch the gear, borrow the gear, but I also couldn't afford to do the thing. So in trying to get back to the river, because at one point or another, like I was really poor. So paddling was out of my league. And when I got back into paddling was probably like 6 years later through COVID was how I got back to the river. Really, I was able to afford my first boat and I had the house and the car to do it. And I was really the only person out on the river. It felt like every time I went out there, I was like the only person out there. And I was like, why isn't anybody else really enjoying this incredible asset that we have running through the Twin Cities? So I saw that there are these trailers parked along the river called Mississippi River Paddle Share. And so I sent an email to Paddle Share and I was like, why don't people know that this existed? If people actually knew that this was an asset, then people would use it. But here I am, the only person on the river that had to bust her butt to buy this boat. And there have been boats here the entire time, which led me into working for a nonprofit part-time to specifically get people out on the river. So me building community around the river came from being employed to create community around the river. And I honestly saw that there was a big issue because there weren't really any women out there. Like I felt a lot of the times in the Twin Cities that I was the only woman paddler or one of the only women paddlers. So much so that I was like my first race, I was first place woman solo. But the caveat there was that I was the only woman in the race, solo woman in the race. And so I wanted to do something about that.
So, entering races, you've got your boat, you're doing your paddling, you've got this dream on the Mississippi River, but it's also, it's a massive river. In terms of building up like your endurance with paddling, what sort of things were you doing? Did you have sort of a training plan that you were following? Was it just a case of getting out onto the river as much as possible? Like, how did you make that work for you and your lifestyle?
I'm an independent massage therapist, so I have had my own massage practice since COVID, which gave me a lot of flexibility. As long as my son, who is 8 now, was in school or at childcare, I was able to take the boat and just hop on the river whenever I could, and then just schedule my clients around there. So I would put in on the Mississippi River, which I have a really great 11-mile stretch that has no barge traffic. When people think of the Mississippi River, they're often thinking of like the Mississippi Delta or like Louisiana, where the river is like 11 miles wide. Up here in the Twin Cities, the river is probably like 75 yards wide. And once you get up to the headwaters, it's like 3 feet wide. So I'm on a stretch that has no barge traffic. Occasionally, like I have to deal with a pontoon or a speedboat, and if anything, that just makes it a little bit more exciting to have some wake on it. But I have a very docile stretch of the mighty Mississippi River. Before I went down the river, though, I did take it a little bit more seriously as far as training. And I had a personal trainer, so I'd go to Lifetime Fitness every Friday morning and work out with this trainer who just got me ready to take on that huge feat. Everybody says in the Mississippi River Paddlers group, like, oh, you get into shape while you're on the river. I was like, I don't have time for that. Like, I need to be on shape before I'm on the river because I didn't want to get injured. I didn't want my body to fail. And I had actually been into a car accident in 2023, which was another reason that I got into the gym with a trainer because I knew what I needed to do, but I also knew that I had herniated a disc or two in my back. So I needed to make sure that I was strong, that I wouldn't do more damage, and that that injury felt supported.
How is it going to work when you're traveling down the river? Were you planning to camp? Were you planning to stay at places? How far in distance were you hoping to go each day? What was that going to look like? The more of the, yeah, like those aspects of the journey.
I went in with a very loose plan because I knew that if I had set out to paddle X amount of miles every single day and I didn't meet that goal, that I would get into my head, and that was not something that I needed to worry about because this trip really, I mean, it did have a timestamp on it. I gave myself 55 days, but I was planned for all of the above. I was ready to camp. I camped in the headwaters. I stayed with river angels. I had a situation in the headwaters where there were people that were around my campsite while I was in my tent, and I could smell like the expression of grass in the middle of the night, and I could hear like very human footsteps, and that made me feel very unsafe. And then there was an instance of a dead fish hanging from a bridge, and nobody that I knew had ever seen dead fish hanging from a bridge. But I'm from New Jersey. And so when someone says, like, you're going to sleep with the fishes, you kind of take that seriously. So I hightailed it out of the headwaters pretty fast. And a river angel, because like the Appalachian Trail or other long distance things, there are trail angels or the Mississippi River Angels, and they took me in and gave me a warm place to sleep and a shower and all of these amazing conversations and beers. And so I stayed with them. I would have people would book me Airbnbs if they were like, I feel like you're going to be in this area, or where are you going to be around this time? And I would give like a city, and they'd be like, oh, I just booked you an Airbnb. And I'd be like, no way. So I had a lot of just really beautiful support from humans. And I always say that if society functioned more like the people do that are really connected to the Mississippi River, we would be so much better for it.
What was it like for you being out on the water day after day, paddling and living out your dream, this ambition that you'd held for so long?
It was absolutely incredible. And it was also absolutely frightening and traumatizing. I was just watching a friend's her documentary on her source to sea journey, and every time I watch people's trips on the Mississippi River with water, like I get this pit in my stomach and this anxiety, and it reminds me of how terrifying that experience is, but also how incredible and how much I can't wait to do it again.
When do you plan on doing it again?
We will see. I keep saying 2028, but we will see what the political climate is then.
One of the amazing things is that you've worked with. I'm not quite sure how it's worked, but there's a film that you're a part of, and it's been entered into some film festivals, and it's like the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. Do you want to share more about the film, which is called Mother River, and how that happened, what it talks about, what people can expect from that?
Yeah, Mother River was quite the surprise. I have this hesitation about being seen and understanding that in some ways, like I can't keep hiding. And I know that from my Instagram, like it looks like I love to get a lot of attention and all the things. And I honestly I don't. So Mother River, I had talked to a bunch of different filmmakers who were interested in creating a documentary about my experience going down the Mississippi River, and I said no, and I said no thank you to a lot of filmmakers. There was one guy out of Brooklyn who grew up in the Twin Cities and was a man of color, and so like he understood and I felt comfortable with him because it's kind of like it's a conflict between what your vision is, like how you see yourself going down the river and how like an external person sees you going down the river. And he got it a little bit, but not all the way. And so funding never really came through. I was like the second place finisher in a lot of funding wars, or I don't know what to call them, grant submissions. And then enters JJ Schuster, who is just this really just kind, chill, calm presence of a human being. And JJ reached out and he was like, I don't have funding. I don't really have a vision, but I really want to capture this. And he was like, let's just get some imagery, and then we'll figure it out. And so Mother River is really JJ and I's first meeting in person. We had some conversations over the phone, and I'm being interviewed by him, and I'm just like really calm and neutral. And it was like I think it was a couple of days before I was about to go down the river too. So everything was real. And so he took that interview and he put it over some actual footage of me during my trip on the river, and then we spent a day down in Wisconsin, in like Alma, Wisconsin, on the river, and he was on a pontoon and his colleague had drones, and I got to play on the river after I'd returned um and recovered. So that was a lot of fun and it came out absolutely gorgeous. Like I remember the first time seeing it and I was like, no way. I was like, this is insane. And I guess other film festivals felt the same way. And so it like played at Bondi, like it played all over the globe, and it's kind of crazy that it did. It was such an incredible opportunity, and I'm glad that that exists to inspire other girls and especially other Black and brown girls to get out on the water and not to be intimidated by a sport that people like me don't necessarily participate in.
I love the almost like the organic way of how it came about, almost like there isn't really a vision, but we're just going to see, what unfolds. And on your Instagram, there is sort of like a short, sort of like 60-second reel, if you call it a reel, and just some of the shots on there are just beautiful of like you holding the water and obviously these amazing like paddling shots and you standing in like a white dress at the edge of the water, like really 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 beautiful. And the title of the film is called Mother River. You are a mother, you've got your son. How have you introduced paddling into his life? Is that something that you're able to do together?
We do. I used to put him when he was a little bit younger. The boat that's in Mother River that is no longer with us. I accidentally drove into a parking garage with her on my roof one day in a rush to go run errands while he was at a care program. And so I used to put him in the back of Drip in her cockpit. And, he's a young kid on water, so he'd fall asleep. So then I'd have to work really hard to like balance out the boat as he's leaning around and flopping over because he's taking a nap. He's calm and held by the water and his mother is paddling. So he conks out. And then for Christmas 2 years ago, I had gotten him one of those open kiddie kayaks, and his favorite color is blue. So I would wear my tow rope and hook it up to his kayak, and then we'd paddle on the lake. So I have not taken him out on the river just yet. So that is a way that we've enjoyed paddling together. And then this winter, I purchased 3 rotomold kayaks from an outfitter out of Lake Superior that was going out of business. And I got one tandem, really with the intention of me not having any excuses as to why I couldn't hit the river because I am a single mom. And so all of Lachlan's care is really given by me or my grandmother or his grandmother, my mother, or I'm paying for childcare, and I'm not going to pay for childcare to go paddle on the river. So now with the tandem, I can just throw him in the front of that boat and get a little drag in. So definitely dedicated into spending time with him on the water. And he is a water baby. He loves to swim and he loves to play in water, and I love that for him. I love that for us.
Reflecting back on your River journey, you didn't quite get to the sea because of. Do you want to explain what happened there with the river and the water?
Yeah, so we didn't have that much snowpack going in to me departing on Memorial Day, and I prayed for rain. Everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, pray for rain." And so I prayed for rain, and I got what I asked for. And so my first 3 weeks was essentially me paddling every single day in the rain, which also made camping almost impossible because you can't really pack up a wet tent and then expect to sleep in it the next night. So really grateful for the River Angels dealing with inclement weather. So what happens is when it's raining in Minnesota, all of that water collectively gets pushed down south. And so that really helped me paddle very fast, sort of riding the speed of the river, which was flooded. And we actually ended up having, I think it was like 100-year flood. We had catastrophic flooding on the Mississippi River, which seemingly got worse as I'm passing these different confluences. And it really became unsafe. As I'm paddling, I have like these full grown cottonwood trees breaching out of the river like they're orca whales. They would just come up out of nowhere, and I have to make really quick corrections. And that became very unfun and really unsafe. And I'm communicating with the world record holders, and they're just like, listen, Devin, like the river is like 4 feet higher right now than it was when we completed the speed record. So please be careful. Please be careful. Please be careful. And I just knew, and I'm talking to people below, like in St. Louis, where like the Ohio River will eventually come in and the Missouri River will come into the Mississippi. And those 2 rivers are also at catastrophic flood levels. The locks are closing. So I don't know if people don't know, the upper Mississippi. So the headwaters down to St. Louis is essentially a series of lakes because of all of the lock and dams. So those locks were closing. The barges knew that the locks were closing. So the barges are moving even quicker, trying to get up the river so that they can make their deliveries. So it got harder to get through the lock and dams because the barges take priority. And then on my last day on the river, it was a washing machine. The water was high. There's nowhere to really, if you were to capsize, there's nowhere for you to really go because the water is up in the trees on the land. It was insane. And so I got to Hannibal, Missouri. And that night, I did. I had the full intent of hitting the river the next morning. And at like 4 in the morning, my gut was like, you can't go any further. It was almost, I actually did some research into my genealogy, and like my people are from Missouri and Kansas and Tennessee. So my ancestors are very much like Mississippi River people, which is kind of mind blowing and beautiful. But I just got this like warning of a knot in my stomach that told me that like my time has come to an end. And there was this thought that I would hit the river again in 2 weeks, allow that crest to happen and then get back on. But I was just like, if I go home for 2 weeks, like I'm not going back out here. Like it ain't gonna happen. Like any endurance athlete knows, the longer you sit, the harder it is to get to get back out there. So yeah, the water was too high. It was unsafe.
But you know what I think is really fascinating? I really appreciate you for sharing. Is that like that gut instinct? For me, I always think of it as like a head and a heart decision. And because like there'll be part of you which is like, no, no, I've said I'm going to, this is what I've said I'm going to do. I've got all my reasons for doing it. I'm going to complete this journey, no matter what. And then then it's just like, actually, no, no, this doesn't feel right. And like the power of being able to listen to your gut and make the right decision for you, I think is just so powerful. And it's even more powerful to talk about it as well. Because I know there'll be other women who are in like adventure situations who, and obviously sometimes there can be mixed messaging, like push on through no matter what. And it's like, no, 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 this is fun.
Right.
This is for adventure. This is not to risk everything for, especially when the river conditions aren't right. And actually the river is still going to be there year after year
The
after.
river is still going to be there, absolutely. And that's what a lot of people assured me because my heart was broken. It was super sad to not be able to complete what I set out to do and I was having those moments of thoughts on my drive back. And it was a really big insult that it only took me like 7 hours to drive back to Minneapolis after it took me weeks to get down there by boat. But some of those thoughts that I had in that U-Haul, because I just rented a box truck to bring my boat back and to get me home, was like, gosh, like it just feels like you never finish anything. And so you go through all of those moments of like regret. And I was like, but this was really out of my control. Like it got to the point where I had no place to stop and like to go to the bathroom. I remember being on the river and having to go to the bathroom and having to find like logs that I trusted were firm enough. And I would stand with like hay core. I would stand with one foot in my boat and another foot on a log and just pee into the river because I couldn't get to the shore. There was no shore to get to. So that's how high the water was that I'm like balancing on logs to relieve myself.
Coming home in the U-Haul, maybe not being able to celebrate or be in that place to appreciate what you had actually achieved. Did you get a little bit of like the adventure blues, or how did you sort of mentally sort of bounce back and almost be kind to yourself and to be like, yeah, do you know, no, I've done a great job here. I've raised awareness. I've shown other girls out there about like paddling and doing endurance paddling, getting out on the river. Or did that take a bit of time?
That's a great question. And people had warned me about the adventure blues too. So I'll say two things about those. I don't think that I've experienced classic adventure blues for the Mississippi River because I'm not done. And I think the moment that I decide that I'm not going to pursue getting down to the Gulf again, that will trigger some sort of depression. I very much still feel like I am on the river. I'm still integrating a lot of those moments 2 years later and still learning so much about that trip and about what I was doing because when I got off the river, I spent 2 weeks at home and then I went back to work. And so I never actually allowed myself to process anything. So in the last almost year of being traditionally unemployed or removed from the organization that I was working for and allowing my nervous system to just settle in, I think that my nervous system just calmed down from being on the river within the last couple of weeks, if I'm being completely honest, because I had just kept filling myself with other things that I never got to process. It was just sort of on a shelf and like sitting there and people would want me to talk about it, which is probably why the first time that you approached me, I didn't really have anything to say because I hadn't processed anything. So in the last few weeks, I've been able to process some of those lessons and some of those moments through the help of seeing other people's documentaries or being next to the river or doing endurance races and seeing those similarities check off. And I do get a little bit of blues after I race. I don't know if it's DOMS or it's blues, but it's always sad that it's over. But those are frequent enough that I get to look forward to the next one. I think that if there was anything that I could say to women or people adventuring, it's like don't rush back into your life. Plan for 2 to 3 weeks where you can just sit and integrate instead of rushing back into capitalism.
That's a really great thought, that. Because actually, I think sometimes what can happen is people can spend so much time, you know, doing the planning, doing the envisioning, doing the dreaming, and then getting that plan in place, and then going out and, delivering on the plan and, being focused on the adventure, being focused on the challenge, and just almost, getting through it or surviving or thriving through it. But then actually, maybe not necessarily thinking the like after the adventure, like, okay, I do need to take some time for things to integrate, to reflect back on that experience, and to not, like you say, rush back straight into work, into business, without properly taking a couple of times to almost like transition, because you've gone
Right.
from like 40, 50 days on the river, living life at the pace of the river and life on your terms, to then suddenly being, going back to other people's schedules, other people's to-do lists, and other people's demands. So that's actually, yeah, it's a really, really important thing to incorporate into adventure and challenge. Devin, you do share on social media, and I know you may not be as active now, but you're still doing such incredible work in this space. Where is the best place for people to connect with you and to learn more about Sovereign Waters? Where should they go?
So sovereignwaters.org is up and loaded with so much information about the mission and goals and current projects that I'm working on. One is like a pool to river, so getting people in kayaks in a pool in North Minneapolis. And it's a gradual step process where we will go from pool to a lake to the Mississippi River. My adventures, I'm always sharing things on my Instagram and on Facebook.
Do you want to share your Instagram handle? It's a very cool name. I like it.
Thank you. So it is aphrodisiac, but it's spelled aphrodiscayak. So AFRODISKAYAK. And that handle was created back when I lived in New Jersey, like a decade before it was even made public. Like that stuck with me. That's how much of a goal this was that I created handles before we even needed handles
Yeah,
for
and it
for all
and
of
it had
this.
kayak in it, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I used to have like a WordPress blog, about how I was gonna do this. Well, that's still very live. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And if you wanted to watch Mother River, mother-river.com, or you can follow the links through my Instagram to get to watch it on Venmo or Vinemo. I don't know what it's called. But
Don't know either. But everyone will know what you're talking about, though, and I'll
yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
I put the links in the show notes as well to make it easy for people to watch the film as well. But Devin, I'd love for you to have the opportunity to share I suppose, your final words of advice, words of wisdom for other women who, they want to spend more time in nature, they want to spend more time on the river, they want to get out there and to follow their dreams and passions. Apart from just do it, what advice would you like to share?
I think that finding other women that want to get dirty and grungy and empowered to do things outside. I'm very much like a solo paddler because that was just necessity, but I think building sisterhoods around nature is what the earth is calling for right now. So get out there, make a plan and just ask people to go with you. And if nobody says yes, plan to go alone. Get out there. You'll learn so much about yourself through sitting under a tree and feeling the sun on your face. And I think that it's really important that we nurture our souls and our spirits through nature. And yeah, just make your spirit happy.
Oh, I love that. Make your spirit happy. It just honestly, I just went to a very visual place then of like sitting under a tree, the sun on my face, I'm by a river under a tree. I'm like, yeah, this is what we need in our life. Like just more,
Mhm.
more, more nature, and definitely more sisterhood as well. Thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more about your love and passion for paddling, for water sports, and the amazing work that you're doing. You're that you are doing to encourage more women and girls to get out there and to get paddling. And just best of luck with Sovereign Waters, an incredible initiative.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me on. This has been incredible.
Hey, tribe, how you're doing? I hope you're keeping super well. It's Sarah Williams, the host of the Tough Girl podcast and the founder of Tough Girl Challenges. Just stopping by to say hi. This is where I just give, have a little chat with you all, update you on what I'm up to, or update you on what members of the Tough Girl tribe are up to. And I got a lovely message from one of the listeners called Caroline, and I'm just going to read it out. So Caroline says, "Dear Sarah, I came across your vlogs when researching the GR10 and was hooked. Thank you for all those amazing podcasts too, and being a stand for women of adventure all over the world. I love it. I'm not solo, as my husband also loves adventure, and we've recently completed the Camino de Santiago, St. James, the Inca Trail, Mount Kilimanjaro, and today we started the GR10. I'm 64, previously living in the foothills of the Pyrenees, so it feels like coming home and having the time of my life. Thanks for keeping us inspired. It is appreciated every day." Caroline, thank you so much for your gorgeous message. I absolutely loved reading that. There are a couple of things that I love is one, that you're doing the GR10, which is absolutely epic, but also all the other challenges that you've done as well. Camino de Santiago, the Inca Trail, Mount Kilimanjaro. It's just amazing to hear from you. And I love the fact that you are 64 and doing these challenges, because I find that so inspiring, as I'm very conscious that I know that I'm getting older. And I think one of the previous podcast episodes I might have talked about when I was like turning 44, it was something like, wow, in 16 years, I'm going to be 60. That's only like 16 adventures, 16 challenges. I've only got 16 summers left. What adventures, what challenges am I going to do? There's just so many to choose from. So I absolutely love it. And I'm so inspired when I hear about women doing amazing and epic adventures and challenges in their 60s. I find it so inspiring. So Caroline, thank you for inspiring me. I hope you are having the best time on the GR10. It is such a stunning walk, such a stunning trail. The views are amazing, and I hope you meet some incredible people and just really enjoy yourself out there. And for people listening who maybe are brand new to the podcast and not quite sure what the GR10 is, the GR10 runs across the Pyrenees mountain range, so in between France and Spain. There's actually 3 trails through that mountain range called the GR10, the GR11, and the HRP route, which is a very high mountainous route to do. But the GR10 runs along the French side of the Pyrenees Mountains, and the GR11 runs along the Pyrenees side of the mountains. And I walked the GR10 last year to celebrate the 10th year anniversary of the Tough Girl podcast, and I created vlogs about it. So you can go and watch my journey on YouTube. But if you don't have the time to watch all of the vlogs, I think there's annoyingly, 9, not 10, which actually annoys me. There should have been 10 vlogs for the GR10. But I did create a film called 10, which was shown at the Sheffield Adventure Film Festival. But it's 10 minutes talking about 10 years of the Tough Girl podcast and through hiking on the GR10. So please do go and check it out if you want to learn more about the GR10. But Caroline, just enjoy that journey. I love the fact that you are out there, and thank you again for sending me a DM and connecting with me. I really do appreciate it. And for everybody listening, please send me DMs. I love to hear from you. I love to hear about your adventures and challenges. I'm most active on Instagram at Tough Girl Challenges. I'm currently out on a trail at the moment called the GR5, which is walking from Holland all the way down to Nice, a journey of 2,200 kilometers, which I will be sharing as well on my Instagram. Massive shout out to all the incredible patrons who are supporting the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media. It really does make a massive world of difference having your financial support every single month. If you'd like to be part of the mission, if you would like to pay it forward, then please do visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, and you can sign up as a monthly or annual patron. Thank you to the 114 patrons out there for supporting the work that I do. It really does make a massive difference. And all that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.